Hey guys, it's Stasia and welcome back to another video. So today, it's a little late, but we are going to go over my year of 2020, how I did. I maybe will throw in my top 10 and just like stats and all of that. So I have my laptop here to see how we did. And yeah, so I have all my stats from 2020. So to start off, I read 135 books, and that is amazing because I think like the 2 years prior to 2020, I read nothing. Like I read maybe 5 books a year. So I'm really happy with 135. I did set my Goodreads goal at 25 at first, and then I was like, oh wow, I'm like actually reading this year. So I bumped it up to 50, and then it bumped up to 100 and stayed at 100 because I was like, I'm not gonna push myself to go any further to like 150 or anything. So it stayed at 100, so I obviously passed that. My best reading month was October. And that is very obvious because October I was alone. My husband wasn't here, so it was just reading. So that was my best month, reading 34 books. My worst month, January and February, because I didn't read at all. But besides those, June was my lowest with 7. Out of that, my most popular genre was contemporary romance, like contemporary / romance, with 46, and my lowest is a tie with 3 genres, and that is dystopian, classics, and sci-fi, each of those with 4 books each. And then my most popular age range was young adult, and then for 2 each, children's and middle grade was my lowest. I gave out the most 4 stars this year with 51, which is something that I want to work on. I need to figure out a better like rating system, I guess you could call it, for myself. Once I finish a book, I just rate it, and I just think, oh, that's how I feel. So yeah, that's my stat, and we will go with my top 10 of 2020. Okay, so I did it. I have my top 10. A couple are like series, but I just can't. So I put it in order the best I could, but I'm just gonna say that these are the top 10. Period. It's very loosely rated because it was very hard for me to put it in a list, and even when I was listing my favorites of the year, it was still over 10 and I needed to cut things out, but we'll get through it. So what I have for number 10 is Death in the Family, and I put this in my top 10 because this was a very quick and engaging read. Obviously it's pretty short, but it kept you on your toes. You kept trying to figure out the mystery and the murderer of this entire book, and honestly, I didn't figure it out. So I feel like that is one of the best things that you could do in a murder mystery, is get the reader so off their toes that they think they know who it is until they don't. So that's why I really like this one. The second one, The Dead Season, just came out. I did not get that one yet, but I've been seeing very great reviews on that one too. So this is number 10. For number 9, I have the Serpent and Dove trilogy. The last one is not out yet, obviously, but I read both of these this year, and I really like this series. Considering I don't really reach towards fantasy, the fact that I had pre-ordered the second one really made a point that this was a book that I really enjoyed. I really like Lou and Reed, which is both of our main characters in these books, and I really love the friend group that was brought up in Blood and Honey. I felt like the magic system and all of that stuff were really thought out. I really liked the premise of the book, which is a witch marrying a witch hunter and, you know, needing to figure their way around that. It was just a very interesting premise, and I'm very, very excited for the last book. So this comes in at number 9. Number 8, I have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This is usually a book that is higher up on people's top 10, but I read a lot of good books, and this is not my genre. This is more of like a historical, I guess you could say, read, because it goes back into Evelyn Hugo's life and, you know, how she got to where she was. basically her life throughout stardom and her 7 husbands and her one true love. I did really love the representation in here, and I really liked the conflict, if that makes sense. Like, it made sense for the time being. It made sense why the conflict was happening. The ending was very sad. I wasn't expecting for it to be sad. This came in at number 8 because although I really did love Evelyn Hugo and I really loved her story, I felt like now I really could not recall as many details to you as I would like to. So I'm not gonna say it was forgettable, but I didn't grasp onto it as much as other people may have. Coming in at number 7 for me is a book that is on everyone's list, but it's either most disappointing or their favorite reads. And for me, that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Now, this was my first V.E. Schwab book. A lot of people, you know, was like, if you love her other stuff, you'll hate this. And if you love this, you won't like her other stuff. So I'm not sure if I will read her other things, but this one is in my top 10 because I truly felt like it was phenomenal. Addie LaRue is such a great character. I do have like my criticisms on it and what I feel like could have been improved, but overall I really liked the characters. I really liked her story. I will admit that I didn't necessarily love some of the flashbacks, but I did find a lot of it very necessary. This book still has me thinking, so that really, you know, shows that this book just sticks with you. I will say it's not as high up because after talking to a lot of people, I can see why, you know, it's not the greatest in the world. I didn't cry, so I wasn't that attached, but I'm also really hard to cry. But overall, Addie LaRue is an amazing character, and I felt like the entire premise of this book was very well thought out, and it was very well put together. Not only Addie, but Henry and Luke, something like that. I don't know how to say his name, but they were also very complex and well thought out characters, and I really like that. But I'm pretty sure this is a standalone, and that's kind of sad because the ending kind of gets you thinking and wanting a second book, but I'm pretty sure it's a standalone. So for number 6, I have Clap When You Land. Elizabeth Acevedo is definitely one of my go-to authors. I read The Poet X when it came out a few years ago, and then I also read With the Fire on High this year as well, but I chose Clap When You Land to represent Elizabeth Acevedo because this one I felt really opens your eyes. This one is written in verse, so the only one of her books right now that is not written in verse is With the Fire on High, and I think that's why a lot of people like that one the most. But I really like this one because it really showed you the dynamics of like 2 different households. Like, you could think you know a person because of where they come from, but you really don't ever know what anyone goes through, no matter where they're from. You can't really know what a person goes through or how they were raised or anything like that without actually knowing them. And I know I've said it before, but there's really something about sisters that like gets to me, and I just love it. And Elizabeth Acevedo is so good with her words. Like, written in verse is so hard to do. I feel like when a book is written in verse, it's really hard to, I guess, be attached to the character as much, but I never have that problem when I read Elizabeth Acevedo books, so she's definitely deserving of my top 10. So 5 and 4, I do not own the book, but yeah, so we're in my top 5 now. In the slot of number 5 is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. A lot of people don't like this book because of the ending. They think like it was a cop-out and stuff, but I personally, I loved this book. This is basically, I think like a take on The Turn of the Screw. I've never read The Turn of the Screw, so I could not tell you the accuracy of it, but it's basically about a girl and she goes to babysit these kids in a haunted house. So I just feel like this book was really eerie and very, very captivating. I read it so fast. I think one of the things that really enhanced my experience on this one, the fact that I consumed it as an audiobook. The audiobook, honestly, it's creepy. Like, it still freaks me out. I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed it so much. So if you have not checked out this book, I highly recommend doing it through audiobook. Number 4 is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and honestly, this was a really fun book. I felt like it was very smart. I wish I read it like physically, but I read it through an ebook, so like there was diagrams and things like that I felt like would have been really fun had I had the physical book, but I didn't. Either way, it was such a fun book. The murder of it, like the mystery of the entire book, I honestly didn't figure it out. So I felt like, again, that's a great thing if you don't know the ending and you think you might and you're wrong. I feel like that's such a great feeling of being wrong, because you're like, oh wow, I did not see that coming. And not only did I not see it coming, but when you look back, it kind of starts to make sense. And that's the best part about it. This book is great, and I still need to read the second one, so I cannot say how good the series is, but the first book is phenomenal. I still need to read the second, and the third comes out in 2021, so I need to get on it. In number 3, I have Finale. I read Caraval and Legendary a while ago, like a couple years ago when they both came out, and I didn't want it to end, so I just didn't read Finale until like now, or like earlier this year. Oops. But I loved it. I loved it so much. I felt like this was the perfect conclusion for all the stories, but also she did open up the door to her next novel that is coming out in September, so I'm really excited for that. I am doing a reread of Caraval, Legendary, and Finale. I'm doing Caraval in June, Legendary in July, and then Finale in August to get us ready for the release Once Upon a Broken Heart in September. And I'm super excited. This trilogy is one of my favorites. Like I have a whole shelf dedicated to this series because I love it so much. I felt like this really kickstarted my potential love for fantasy. The way that Stephanie Garber writes is honestly just so captivating. Like she really knew how to transform the world around me so that I was in the game of Caraval and like right there with Scarlett and Tessa, and it was honestly the greatest experience. I'm sad this ended, but I'm very happy to know that she's coming out with a new book in 2021. Okay, now we're in my top 2. So number 2 is honestly, if you watch my videos, it's not gonna come as a surprise. I've been talking about this forever, ever since I read it, and it's the entire trilogy because I'm not gonna choose one, and that is the Anna and the French Kiss trilogy. I love these books. Like, I don't know how many times I can say I love this book because I just love it so much. I felt like these were super fun, super quick. The characters, I loved all the characters. And it's just like, it's great. It's honestly just so great. And I loved how Stephanie Perkins didn't make this necessarily a series. She made it like companion novels. So you don't have to read them together, but reading the previous one does enhance the next. So like there's like little tidbits of Anna in Lola and then both of them in Isla, and you're just like, wow, that's great. So I feel like reading them just as whichever one you want to read, like that's fine, but I feel like the whole series, the way it's published, so Anna, Lola, Isla, is honestly the best thing ever, because you don't need to know the background story to read these books and be introduced to these other characters, but when you do know their background story, it honestly just makes it so much better. And I feel like during COVID, you know, we were in lockdown and we couldn't go anywhere, but Anna and the French Kiss literally just brings you to France. And Lola is in San Francisco, which is also where I live. Well, I don't live in San Francisco, but I live in California, but still, that's like a different part. So like, it's not just about the romance. Like there's also a sense of adventure, especially in Anna and the French Kiss, where they're exploring France, and it's just, it's great. I love it. And now in my number 1 spot, I couldn't choose a book, but I chose an author. We knew it was coming. Colleen Hoover, really? Come on. I discovered her this year by first reading It Ends With Us, and totally fell in love. So then I read November 9 and I was in love more. And then I read Ugly Love and I thought I couldn't love her more, and I did again. So Colleen Hoover is just amazing. She's phenomenal. I couldn't tell you my favorite book because that's not fair, but I love them all. She just has such a way with building her complex characters to the point where like a lot of people are just like, oh, it's just problematic. Like it's nothing new. They're problematic. They're toxic. And my opinion on it is that it's realistic. Like a lot of relationships are not black and white. Like it's not like you're together or you're not. It's not like you're happy or you break up. Like there's a lot of layers to relationships, and I feel like she does that well. Like it's very realistic that there will have problems that arise, and it's very realistic that the people you think you know, you may not know at all. Like, it's very, very realistic, and that's why I love her so much. Unfortunately, these are the only 3 books I own from her, so I need to go buy more of her books so I can read more of her stuff. But she is by far #1 top of 2020. Okay, so that's all my stats and my top 10 of 2020. Let me know what your top 1, top 3, top 5, top 10, whatever, how'd you do in 2020? Let me know down below. You can also like and subscribe there as well, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!